here we go.
Welcome to the 9 Route Fantasy Football Podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. We really didn't plan on doing this podcast, but we feel like doing a mock draft is probably the best way to help our listeners see the process that we go through when we're drafting and, make determinations between specific players in different slots. So Rudy and I are going to randomly draft wherever our sleeper app tells us we're going to be drafting from today. And we're going to just give you, like I said, a little rundown, a couple minutes per pick on who we're looking at in different positions, different draft spots, and what our overall strategies are going to be from those positions, or depending on what players are left. Just so you know, we're doing a 1 QB, 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 1 tight end, 1 flex, and then there's 5 bench spots.
PPR based?
Yes, this is PPR settings, and this is going to be on the Sleeper app. Sleeper does not sponsor our podcast. Hopefully maybe somebody from Sleeper hears this and they do, but we're doing the Sleeper app. We're using the Sleeper app because we're able to both draft in the same mock draft together, which is one of the features that I really like about this app. And one of the reasons I've been using it to mock draft recently. So
yeah, we're in the end game of the, the Emperor Dynasty Superflex draft on here. And yeah, it's different. It took a minute to get used to the layout compared to some of the other ones, but at the end of the day, a lot of the added features, like Pat just said, they do make for throughout the year. You can kind of just sit there and hammer maybe drafts with, your league mates and different things like that. So this is pretty cool. So, and I don't really have to worry about my picks this time. So I'm good.
You'll actually get them all without any interruption. Do you even know how to draft that way? Like actually having every pick?
This year will be one of the first. I just had a work league redraft and obviously with the new sleeper. But yeah, normally I'm not picking until about midway through. So it's hard to believe you have first round, second round. I've only heard of them. I've heard of them in faint history, but never actually been involved.
It's like a unicorn.
Yes, it's a unicorn that just jumped over a rainbow eating a 4-leaf clover.
So we talk about this a lot, and just so that we can give some of our listeners clarity, because I feel like we've joked about this a few times, and Rudy is famous for just going for it. Like you literally try to win every league you're in every year, and I think that's the proper approach. I mean, there's no point in playing fantasy football if you're not trying to win, and sometimes you will mortgage your future to win this year, and then figure out how to make up those picks or those players the following year. And that's something that a lot of people aren't really willing to do. And it's something that, as much as sometimes you get your stones busted in our home league, it's something, like you said, you are you're one of 2 3-time champs now after this year, but there's only 2 in the league that have won this thing 3 times in the last 13 or 14 years. So whatever strategy you're employing has been working. And I respect that about you, with your ability to sort of just go for broke.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Normally this is the part where I ask if you want to get out of here. But no, I mean,
buy me a drink first.
Yeah, well, obviously there's no effort required after that, but I appreciate it. No, deep down, it is, to quote a very famous man, if you ain't first, you're last. I do feel that, once you get into it, it's a lot easier, I think, in our type of a draft where you have keepers and you have a lot of optionality when it comes to moving picks around to secure players or to build wealth for a following season. But I mean, I've always had that way of trying to look at it where, hey, I'm trying to win this year and I'll get to next year when I can get there. It's worked out. It's also not worked out. But again, I'm, and trying to have fun while I'm doing it. Yeah, obviously there's a little kitty and some pride at the end that you want to get involved with, but being able to have like bragging rights and stuff. And I mean, to say I got lucky with winning the one back to back with not having to pick till the 7th round. And I mean, I didn't think I had a shot, but I had to do everything I did. I made trades. I worked the waiver wire like a champ, and I listened to people, cry. I had a rule that was in our league that actually ticked off somebody because the playoff seeding went the way the rules went. And they were mad that I didn't play them because of, and it was one of those deals. But at the end, it was fate, and I got lucky at the same time. But, something like this, drafting from the beginning with no keepers and doing redraft leagues.
All right, man. So what do you say? You ready to get into this thing? Let's give it a go.
Let's get it on.
So we do not know where we're drafting from as of right now. I'm going to hit the start draft.
I'm drafting from my house. That's all I know.
All right. So it looks like I have the 6th pick in this draft. Rudy, you have the 10th pick. So we should get some pretty good talk going on these later picks. I think are, especially in the first round, are a little bit less of an auto pick. I think there's a little bit more strategy involved once you get past like the first 5 or 6 running backs. So let's go ahead and get it going.
Let's do it. Finally. Boom. All right. Oh, wow. Talk about random.
So
wow. Saquon going first.
That is crazy. So the draft starts with Saquon Barkley, number 1, Dalvin Cook at the 2, Alvin Kamara, then Christian McCaffrey at 4, Ezekiel Elliott at 5, and I am on the clock at 6. So normally here I'm looking at, I definitely know that I want one of the good tight ends, the stud tight ends. Anybody who's listened to our previous episodes kind of knows that that's kind of my thing, but I don't think I have to necessarily jump for one here at 6. I think with the quality running backs that are still on the board. So there's Derrick Henry still on the board. Jonathan Taylor, Austin Eckler, they're my top 3 running backs. Obviously, all the wide receivers are still there. I think in this spot at the 6, I'm probably looking at taking one of these stud running backs because I don't want to wait until the 7th pick at the 2nd round to pick my first running back. So I'm a safe player in the beginning of drafts. It's just the way that I roll. So I am going to take the safest pick on the board and select Derrick Henry. And I feel like at this point, I can still get one of those running backs coming back. One of those tight ends coming back and still snag one of those top 3 in the 2nd or 3rd round.
Yeah, I mean, that's totally smart. Now I see, running back central. And
so
this kind of fell the way I figured it would. And I mean, at the same time.
So let me just read the real quick. Nick Chubb went at 7, Jonathan Taylor at 8, Tyreek Hill, the first wide receiver off the board at 9, and now you're up at 10.
So I would have, where I'm at right now, this guy I always want to take. I'm going to go with Devontae Adams. I'm thinking he's probably going to be number 1 wide receiver. Now, at the same time, seeing Travis Kelce stick around there, and similar ilk, and Tyreek Hill already going off the board. I'm going to do what I need to do though, and I am going to take Devontae Adams. Kelce right away.
Yeah, Kelce goes at 11, of course. Patrick Mahomes, at 12, and then coming back, Aaron Jones and Austin Eckler, 2 more running backs off the board. So you are now up again. Pick in the 2nd round.
I've never been scared to stay away from running backs, as dumb as it sounds. Now, looking at the fact that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 running backs are off the board. I'm going to look around and just see who's coming up behind them, running back wise. Yeah, there's some people that are there. I see Najee Harris. I see Joe Mixon. I'm good. I'm going to stock up and bury the wide receiver category. I'm going to take Stephon Diggs.
I like it. This is exactly what we talked about in our draft episode with letting the draft sort of come to you and not forcing picks. And I mean, I had Diggs early in the season as my number 1 wide receiver, just because I feel like I feel like Diggs could get 175 targets this year. I know that sounds crazy, but the Bills and
how about 200?
Yeah. Let me see your 175. And so no, I like it. I mean, especially in a PPR league, you are guaranteeing yourself probably 15 catches a week with those 2 guys alone. So that's not a bad start at all. So after you took Diggs, Najee Harris went, then DeAndre Hopkins, and then A.J. Brown. And now I am back up with my 2nd pick. Didn't think Travis Kelce was going to fall to me here. Not sure if I'm really sold on Kittle or Waller this early, but I am a little nervous that neither one of those guys will get back to me. Luckily, I have sort of been rising on TJ Hawkinson, so I'm kind of okay taking him later on if I miss out on those top 3 guys. I would really like Kittle or Waller to come back to me at my next pick. So we're going to go ahead and take a chance here because there is a lot of talent still on the board. And I'm going to go in this spot. I'm going to go with another running back, and I'm going to go with Joe Mixon because I just think that he's one of the few workhorse backs left, and I just feel like he's going to at least get the work. All right, so after Mixon, it goes DK Metcalf, Calvin Ridley, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Antonio Gibson, and then team one finishes with Josh Allen and George Kittle. So that rounds out. That's a pretty nice start. Saquon, Josh Allen, George Kittle. Then Keenan Allen, Allen Robinson, Josh Jacobs, Terry McLaurin, and back to me. And luckily for me, Aaron Waller is still on the board, and this is the perfect start to a draft for me. I get 2 stud running backs and Darren Waller, and I'm pretty happy about this mock draft so far.
Absolutely, man. I mean, that's how it has to be. You're in the middle. It fell right to you, and you even said, "Hey, look, I'll wait." You know, you could have went ahead and picked them. It wouldn't have technically hurt you, but at the same time, now looking at where you're at, you got 2 solid running backs. You have what could be the number 1 tight end when the season ends. It definitely is a possibility. And again, I'm always about the tight end. I always feel like that's a position that doesn't get overlooked because of the big names out there, but Kelsey, Kittle, Waller, and like you say, Hawkinson, guys like that, Ertz back in the day. But yeah, that's a spot where if you can lock that up, that's a position win during the week, and that can be a win for your week, just based on having a guy like that. And he's a tight end, but he's a wide receiver 1 for that team, so that's awesome.
Yeah, and I look at the running backs that are available at that spot, and I'm much happier taking Mixon there. And then even if Kittle fell to me, who I have Kittle ranked just below Waller, I'm still fine with Kittle there instead of DeAndre Swift or Chris Carson. Mike Evans, who also went right before your pick, which you are now on the clock at the 310.
Yeah. And I am seeing the tight end train leaving the station, and I am all about it. Now I am looking for upside at this point also, because of the level of studs that have gone off the board, some second, third year players that are out there that are decent. But I look at a guy who's available right there, and he was traded up so that somebody could get him. And I'm going to take him right where he is. I'm going to take Kyle Pitts for my tight end and roll with that.
Nice.
Quickly back to me. We had Justin Jefferson go off. I guess somebody smelled fear and took Mark Andrews at 12, Amari Cooper on their wraparound pick at 12. So they're starting to get one of each. David Montgomery, who I would have probably looked to maybe take with my next pick, was taken right before me. So now I'm not scrambling. I'm not scared. I'm going to take a peek into the backfield and look to see what's around. Miles Sanders, not too high on. The Darrell Henderson is listed as a guy coming up, and I'm going to start to peek down the board a bit of what they have available. And I'm looking at a guy who,
before you pick, is there any thought here with the way you started? Is there any thought to try and like a zero RB type of strategy where you just wait until, you know, maybe the 5th or 6th round and grab somebody like, you know, Raheem Mostert or something like that as your one, and just stockpiling wide receivers, or
no,
is that something that you're not?
I'm looking right now at possibly taking Kyler Murray just because of the points that he puts up. Now, at the same time, looking at the running backs that are there and how they're going to be held off on, the one guy who I would take at running back, and I'm probably going to do that right now because I feel like the injury really helped him skyrocket up the board based on what he did last year. I'm going to take James Robinson.
Okay. All right.
That's what I said.
Not necessarily a zero RB strategy, but definitely good value there for Robinson in the 4th round.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I feel like he moved on up. And again, I wanted to get at least one guy there and then maybe look to take a rookie with upside. I have a quarterback in mind for down the road, so I'm not sweating it.
So just so that, and we talked a little bit just a second ago about the zero RB strategy. Had you taken Kyler Murray there, this is just a, you know, you didn't, but had you taken him there, if you're going to do a zero RB strategy, I am all for. Normally, I'm not into taking a tight end and a quarterback within those first like 5 or 6 picks. I'll take one or the other.
No,
This
you
year
have
it's
to.
this year it's tight end because quarterback is much deeper. But if you're doing a zero RB strategy, I'm completely fine. I actually believe that the correct way to go is to lock up the three other positions, your three other starting positions, get a top quarterback, get a top tight end, and load up at wide receiver, and then start looking for value later on. So again, I know that we had discussed in the draft strategies, don't take a quarterback and a tight end early, but if you're doing a zero RB, I believe that you need to have advantages at those other positions in order to offset the disadvantage that you're likely going to have at the running back position.
Absolutely. I think the first time I won in our league, I had just steered clear of it. I was taking people and, hey, you didn't take a running back yet. Everybody's going to let you know because they want to throw you off of what you're doing. Or if you are moving through the draft fluidly, if you're going in with the mindset of, nope, don't care about the running backs because I know I'm not going to get a good one in the first 4 or 5 or 6, or, again, ours is a keeper league. So sometimes our first 2 rounds are similar to a 3rd or 4th round, depending on where you're at. It's kind of tricky. And again, you're maybe looking to adjust. And I think that year I ended up taking the Tevin Coleman, Devonta Freeman backfield out of Atlanta where, okay, they were decent picks. Maybe they'll pan out. And it helped actually win my league for me because these guys just put me over the top. And I had so much stockpiled in other positions. I think I even took my kicker before I took a running back. They're honest to God, they're probably my last 2 of my last 3 picks. So, everybody's like, oh, yeah, right. You have no shot. But it's like Pat just said, it's about, okay, if I'm not going to firm up what's considered the GOAT position, you have 2 running back spots, you have a flex, which if you happen to get 3 solid running backs somehow in your team, you've possibly firmed up everything else. But what have you given up at that point? Did you miss a run on tight end? Did you miss a stud quarterback run? There are some point differentials there for the top 2, 3, 4 quarterbacks, and then you see some fall off, and that can affect you for yearly totals. But again, on a weekly total with a QB like a Murray or Lamar Jackson or Mahomes, it puts up numbers on legs as well as through the air. Josh Allen's joined that group too. But yeah, you get to that point and just commit to what you're doing, have faith in it, and still you have to be water. You have to be fluid. You have to just go with what's there.
All right. So since your pick of James Robinson, CeeDee Lamb, Miles Sanders, and Kyler Murray have gone, I am now on the clock. I have Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon, and Darren Waller so far. So obviously I am looking, and I really like the value of the wide receivers here in the 4th round. Julio Jones is actually the highest on my board that I have ranked, but I'm a little nervous with Julio. I would love Julio Jones here if he was my 2nd wide receiver, but with his injury history, with him going to a new team, with AJ Brown being, what I consider the one in that offense, I know that you feel a little bit differently. Julio scares me a little bit as my number 1 receiver. So I think I'm actually going to bypass Julio and go down to the next receiver that I have ranked, which is Robert Woods. I feel like Woods is always safe. He's, guaranteed 100 plus targets. Guy catches 90 plus balls a year. I feel like as a number 1 wide receiver, I feel a little bit safer with Robert Woods. So I'm going to go ahead and select him. I don't think Julio is going to make it back to me, but I am okay going with Woods and a guy like, Tyler Lockett or Deontay Johnson later on. So I'm going to go ahead and select Robert Woods.
Robert Woods, so heavily underrated. He just gives you solid numbers virtually every week. And to see what he did with all the promise in Buffalo, it never quite panned out. But to see him finally turn it around and do what he does now in LA is amazing.
All right. So after Woods, we got Cooper Kupp, Darrell Henderson, Kareem Hunt, Lamar Jackson goes. And to close out the 4th round, team 1 takes DJ Moore and opens the 5th with Jamar Chase, Adam Thielen, Julio Jones, Chris Godwin, and then TJ Hawkinson. And I'm back up at the 506. Julio Jones almost did make it back to me, which would have been nice, but I'm fine. Like I said, I'm still completely fine with taking a Tyler Lockett or Deontay Johnson here. I feel like that's a pretty good start either way. I have Lockett ranked just above Deontay Johnson in my rankings. So I'm going to go ahead and take Tyler Lockett here.
And Lockett's a good pick. He can be a little boom or bust, but when he booms for you that week, he's going to put up 50 points. It's just when you turn around the next week, if he gives you 0, I did run into that one year and it knocked me out of the playoffs. I think everybody had that Monday night San Fran game where he just didn't show up. But
yes, he again, and that's why I don't necessarily like Julio Jones for the same reason. I probably wouldn't have taken Lockett over Woods because of that. Yes, the year-end numbers are going to be the same, but Lockett just seems to be one of those guys that, and there's no real math or science to it. It's just Lockett is just one of those guys that seems to either have a really good game or not, but he's going to finish the season with, again, 90 plus catches. And he's definitely one of Russell Wilson's favorite targets. So
no, absolutely.
Deontay Johnson, Russell Wilson, Myles Gaskin off the board. And you're now up at 5'10".
Yeah. So now I'm literally at a crossroad because I did have some people earmarked and I'm coming up on a group of them. I have a running back in Mike Davis that I want. I feel a little higher on him than some people. I don't think he's going to be a top 5 guy, but I see him as a starting running back in a dynamic offense who did a phenomenal job of filling in last year for Christian McCaffrey. He wasn't Christian McCaffrey, but he was a very good running back last year, put up points every week, had a little injury here and there, and that was probably from being pressed into duty. And his success there actually got him that contract to be a number 1 in Atlanta. And I'm really considering him. Although I'm getting teased, I'm looking at a couple quarterbacks that are nearby too. You got Justin Herbert and you got Aaron Rodgers just hanging around. There's also that Dak Prescott guy, but I have too many questions about him between the foot and the shoulder and some throwing mechanics issues that have come out because of the injury. And again, that may also affect his rushing ability. I'm fading him, not as Eagles love and Cowboys hate. I do feel like it's going to take him maybe a season to get back to Dak level, where last year he looked like he could have been maybe a number 1 overall in points in the league. I guess at the end of the day, I can firm up my running backs because I want Mike Davis. And I'm going to take him and hope that those quarterbacks that I think we're going to be around they're not probably, and that's okay. But I'm just going to take my guy and roll with it.
Well, we talked about paying attention to the teams that are drafting after you. One of the great things about being in the 10 spot is you only have to look at team 11 and 12. And if you go back and look, Team 12 took Patrick Mahomes in the first round. So you really didn't have to worry about him grabbing another quarterback. In theory, I mean, there's a possibility that he would have taken another quarterback. You never know what's going to happen in these home drafts. But so you really only had one team to fade. You did technically fade that team because he did take a quarterback, but he took Justin Herbert, who I know that you're not super high on this year. Also, Javonte Williams, Michael Thomas, and Kenny Golladay went in to start the 6th round, and you are now back up at the 603. And you got a pretty solid team so far, and I'm guessing you're going quarterback here.
Well, and that's where I get interesting sometimes because I look at it as, yes, I know I could. I feel like my daughter sometimes. I know I should do this, but I'm not going to. I'm going to maybe go this way. I'm at a point right now where I look at the draft coming back to me, and I have so many picks between the next person that I really, really want. And I'm trying to look at what's granted, this is a mock, but I'm looking and I don't see that person still being there. And I look and I say, well, I have 2 wides, I have a tight end, I have 2 running backs, I have a flex spot that I do need to fill. In our league, I would look at it as, well, it's a keeper league. And this guy I was very high on personally. And I'm going to go and reach like Mr. Fantastic, probably a round too early, round and a half too early. But I'm taking, to me, what will be probably a value. I'm going to take Devontae Smith, Eagles rookie.
One of the other things that we talked about was taking your guys, you know what I mean? Not being afraid. And listen, in our home leagues, you're probably going to have to jump on Devontae Smith if you want to, because we drafted a bunch of Eagles fans. So,
and Donnie and Anthony.
and you're right. No, there's going to be people that jump on Smith, and that just is what it is. And if you want a guy, like you said, you got to take him. And you've talked about your belief in him. And listen, I don't fault you at all. I don't necessarily believe what you believe, but that's the great thing about fantasy football is you have you could look like a genius with that pick. And it's a possibility that he ends up being a top 15 wide receiver this year.
Yeah. Like I said, but coming out of college with the pedigree, and I know it doesn't always translate to the NFL. Just looking at a pick right after me, you have Gus Edwards, who he wouldn't even be near this board right now. But because of the J.K. Dobbins injury, he's moved up from mid 50s, mid 40s for some people, and he's turned into a top 25 running back because everybody sees what he has. I know we talked earlier in the year about Dobbins and used Edwards as a retort on both, pros and cons of things. And again, the Gus bus has always been there. Now he's a guy who isn't a hard reach at this point. And again, he's a good handcuff, but now he's thrust into a starting position. Again, myself, I was debating on him. I looked at him possibly before Smith, but like Pat said, if you have your heart set on somebody at that draft, pick that person if they're there. I mean, look ahead, make sure maybe you can wait a minute, but if that person gets taken, it can really fluster you. You can always trade for him maybe in midseason if your league allows for it. But at the end of the day, go with your gut. And if you lose, you lose, but at least you lost your way. If you win, then you can rub it in everybody else's face.
Yeah, you definitely need to be happy with your roster when you leave. And like you said, you had a lot of picks between that pick and your next pick. And so if you want Smith, then take him there. I don't disagree with that at all. So like you said, Gus Edwards went right after your Devontae Smith pick, then Odell Beckham, then Brandon Ayuk. I am on the clock. After Ayuk, I was actually hoping that T. Higgins would fall to me. I saw Jamar Chase went in the 5th round. To open the 5th round, I believe T. Higgins is going to be the better wide receiver in that offense, and I believe that Cincinnati is going to have to throw the ball a ton. So I am extremely happy to be able to get T. Higgins here. So that is my pick.
Great pick. I mean, looking at it, you're set pretty much at all skill levels right now, and you can start to be creative if you want to. I mean, you're not worried about firming up maybe a position, and you're letting what Pat's doing right now. He's right in the middle. So he's in a great spot. He's letting the draft come to him from both angles. And being in the middle, he knows that if he wants to wait on somebody, he's probably got less time, where I was 3-4 picks away, and that's maybe all it takes. But he's been in a good spot right now. He's taking solid players. He's got great wide receivers. He's got stud backfield. He's got one of the best tight ends in the game. So he's got the ability to strengthen his bench, look at a quarterback. He can make moves that he wants. He's not being forced to make any moves right now.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Normally you're destroying the way I draft, but this is a welcome.
No, that'll be this Saturday. Don't worry. I got you. I got you.
All right. So after T. Higgins, Dak Prescott went off the board. Juju Smith-Schuster, Aaron Rodgers, Raheem Mostert, Chase Edmonds, Robbie Anderson to start the 7th, and then Noah Fant, Leonard Fournette, Chase Claypool, Melvin Gordon, and then I am back up. And I have been looking at a guy for the last few picks and cannot believe that he is still on the board. Maybe I have a little bit more confidence in him than most, but strangely enough, oh wait, did he go off the board? Oh, did I miss someone?
Who are you looking for?
I was looking for, oh no, yep, there he was. All right, well, this is why you pay attention in your drafts, folks, because I had my mind set on Raheem Mostert, and he is gone. So let's go back and take a look at who's available still and what do I need. I could use a quarterback here. I really like the next up on my draft board is Tom Brady. He's, I think, a value here in the 7th round. I could also look to shore up another running back. Having only 2 on my roster, I would like to have a 3rd at this point, but I don't see anybody jumping off of the page that I'm like itching to draft. Now, I could also pass on Brady and wait for a guy like Stafford or Tannehill later on. 17 took quarterbacks already, so quarterbacks are probably going to go off the board here in the next few picks. So I feel like I'm probably, if I want Brady, this is the place I got to take him. I'm also okay with Tannehill, but the fact that I have Derrick Henry, I don't really love the quarterback running back stack on the same team. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and take Tom Brady here and round out what is starting to be a pretty decent roster.
Looking at the few picks we just went through after Brady, you're looking at Mike Gesicki, Jerry Jeudy, and Dallas Goedert. So now I'm coming back and I'm looking to see where I'm at. And I am also paying attention to a little news that Michael Thomas has been put on the PUP list. So he's expected to miss the first 5 games for those that are drafting at home. And again, that's something As you're drafting, you definitely want to try to keep up on some of the news and notes. This is a busy week right now. This is cut week for all your teams to get down to the minimum roster available, and get rid of some of that fat from training camp. So you see some veterans float away. Don't be that guy or gal that drafts somebody that's not on a team. Please don't end up that way. But you definitely
Or injured.
Yeah, definitely
Those
somebody
guys
who
can't
is
believe Dobbins is still here in the fifth. I'm taking him. Like,
yeah.
okay,
Yep.
go
And
for it.
nowadays, I mean, when we started doing this, you didn't have all the technology and news in your face like that. That was something you would have found out maybe 3 days later and,
Right.
and been begging your commissioner to do something for you. Nowadays, everything's so static that you can't miss it. And if you think that you think you can get away with that excuse anymore, it's not going to happen. It's totally on you. Okay. So I'm looking at what I have. I still haven't drafted a quarterback, and I'm still possibly looking down the board. And yeah, I'm not in a hurry. I'm looking at where the levels of QB are. I have 3, 4 guys right now that I'd be totally happy with. So I'm going to start to load up the rest of my team. And I look and I say, I have 3 wide receivers. I have a tight end. I have 2 decent running backs. Let me see what's out there in running back land. I'm looking for a starting running back, possibly from a team. There's a
Now,
few
I would never give any advice in a live draft to anybody, but since we're doing this mock draft and you and I are kind of doing this together, how do you feel about Damian Harris from New England? Is that somebody that you're looking at right now?
No, I as much as you see Sony Michelle go to LA, you have Ramondre Stevenson, who looks like he's going to be a monster. You always have James White, who just always seems to be involved in the offense annoyingly, and it's Belichick and it's running backs. Again, this year being so weird, it's really hard to tell. I would take him now. I don't really want to take him right now. And I feel the same way about him as the same way I feel about like Ronald Jones, who is just like a guy he's there, but he's got a running back with him. He's got a quarterback that's going to throw to everybody and their mother. I'm going to start to peek down the board and not see a ton of people. I see people that are rumored, that are whispered, even Sony Michael, Philip Lindsay. I'm going to creep back into wide receiver land, take a peek at what's still laying around. There's some names. I'm going to go back to tight end and see what's hanging around, see if I can take, although I have that position, see if I could strengthen it and weaken somebody else by taking a good tight end. So I'm not really set, and I don't have my heart set on anybody right now. So I am just going to I might as well try to get an extra running back in there, and I'm going to look around and the Damian Harris was nice. I'm going to scroll down and let me take Sony Michelle, depending on where you're from. I'm going to take him because he was traded for a reason. They wanted a veteran. They wanted a big boy in the room. And I know sometimes he has some knock injury history with arthritic knees, but then again, he's a football player. They all have them. Now, it came right back to me.
So Cortland Sutton, Jalen Waddle, DJ Chark, and Ronald Jones, and then right back to you in the 8th round.
So I went a little strong there at running back. Check out wide receiver land, see if there's anybody in here. My quarterback room is empty, but I'm fine with that. I'm going to take a peek back at the tight end spot. See Gronk floating around. See a couple other people.
I think with Pitts, and I do think that he's going to be a good player. It's obvious that rookie tight ends struggle a little bit in their first year. So I think a backup tight end in your position, and anybody who drafts Kyle Pitts, taking another tight end isn't a terrible idea, just in case, like I said, it doesn't turn out, or it takes him a little bit of time to really get acclimated to the offense.
No, absolutely. I mean, that's kind of where I'm looking at it, like that he's a definite on the radar kind of guy. We're in a PPR league. I'm going to look at somebody who catches a ton of balls and is back on the radar. He had fallen off when it comes to the last few years, and then came on pretty strong at the end of the year last year, and obviously was an integral part of the Super Bowl winning team. I'm taking Antonio Brown.
Okay, I like it.
Yeah, actually, I mean, catching a lot from Brady, and I know the two of them. I think with a good training camp under their belt, I could see him still being the big boy in the room. Yeah, you got multiple people, but if Brady throws for 4,500, 5,000 yards, that's getting spread basically amongst 3 to 4 people.
I didn't even know you were looking at wide receiver there. I think that's a great pick. I mean, you don't know how that offense is going to go, but you know that Antonio Brown is going to have weeks where he's just a stud. There's no getting around that from happening. Like that's just going to be a thing. So after Antonio Brown, Matthew Stafford, Deebo Samuel, and Trey Sermon went, and I am now up with my 8th pick, and I have my starting lineup pretty much locked in, which I don't always do in drafts. Honestly, I usually will wait much longer on a quarterback, but Tom Brady sitting there in the 7th was sort of, I couldn't pass on him. So what I'm looking at now is basically just trying to take, now that my starting lineup is filled, I'm pretty much just looking to take the best player available. And who that happens to be for me is going to be, since you didn't take him, I will take Damian Harris.
There you go.
All right. After Harris, Jarvis Landry, Michael Carter, Rob Gronkowski, Laviska Shenault, James Conner, Tyler Boyd, Zach Moss, Brandon Cooks, Tyler Higbee, and Trevor Lawrence. Team 5 picked the second quarterback and took Trevor Lawrence. And I am back up. And so, honestly, I didn't really like any of those guys that went in between my 2 picks, except for Shenault. So that's a good thing, which means that the guy that I was actually thinking about taking instead of Harris is still on the board. And I know he's suspended the first week of the season, but I think that he has always produced whenever he's been given an opportunity. And I think that Miami offense is going to give him that opportunity this year. So I'm going to take Will Fuller.
Ooh, very cheeky. Yeah. Fuller's always been a frustrating player. He couldn't stay healthy. Then when he was healthy, he put up great numbers. And if he's not healthy and he's not putting up great numbers, he's getting suspended. So yeah, no, I definitely, Miami's a team that could definitely make some moves this year. Looking after your pick of Will Fuller, Michael Gallup comes off the board. Ryan Tannehill goes to team 8. They have also 2 QBs. And then David Johnson can be a little bit of a polarizing player. Something's got to come out of Houston this year. I mean, it just looks like a mess. Nobody knows what's going to go on with Deshaun Watson and so forth. But still a professional football team, still going to have a fantasy relevant player or 2 that you're not taking to win your league by any stretch. So I am still not scared. I am still going to wait on my quarterback. I have multiple options out there. And then I know I talked about maybe doubling up, and Pat mentioned also that having a young tight end, let alone for a bye week, he could struggle. He could get hurt. A lot of different factors in play. I'm going to look at then a player who last year was pretty solid for me. And he's in a very big offense with an awesome quarterback throwing to him. A little touchdown dependent, yes, but he is that target. I'm going to take big shot Bob Tonyan from Green Bay. And I like taking players from, and a lot of people out there are maybe smart with this. Look at the teams that have the best offenses in the league year after year. Look at your Kansas City, your Green Bay, teams like that. Look at Tampa Bay. They're going to put up points. They're going to put up yardage. Their skill position players are going to be heavily involved, especially if there's injuries. A third stringer can suddenly move into a borderline starting spot for weeks at a time, maybe even an entire season. So those are people you want to look at. So I have doubled up my tight ends. I have 4 wide receivers. I have 3 running backs. I'm going to probably try to even out my running backs and see what I can do.
Still passing on quarterback here.
Yeah, because I'm looking at the options that are out there. And if everybody is still taking 2, I still have people available that I can take that are some guy actually who's way further down the board on here. So let me look at another running back, and let me look at somebody who could really factor in on a team. And I'm going to look at a guy that I used as an argument against DeAndre Swift, who's already banged up in camp and who put up some decent numbers in Green Bay. I'm taking Jamal Williams right here.
I like it. I think that even if Swift is as good as they expect him to be, or the fantasy community expects him to be, I think that Jamal Williams is still going to get work the way he did in Green Bay. Speaking of Green Bay, AJ Dillon went right after Jamal Williams. Mike Williams from the Chargers, and then Big Irv Smith, who I don't know if Team 7 was paying attention, but looks like Big Irv may be out for a little while. Had an injury that they are still trying to figure out whether it's what the timetable is for his return. But so he's got a shot to be something this year. I think he's going to have an opportunity. But I am up at the 10:07. And like I said, I'm just basically looking for the best available players left on the board at this point. And for me, there's a couple guys that I really like. And I am normally not a 2 QB guy. But in this spot, I feel like there's so much potential upside with Jalen Hurts that I love Tom Brady. And I think Tom Brady's going to be great. But you can never, I mean, if you have the top 2 quarterbacks in the league, somebody's going to be willing to trade you, or you just sit on that guy and keep those points on your bench and keep them away from your opponents. And at this point in the 10th round, I don't see how I could pass on a guy like Jalen Hurts with the ability to, like we said in our QB tight end podcast, extrapolate out the numbers. He used the QB2 last year on a points per game basis. So that is in the range of outcomes for him. So I'm going to go ahead and select Jalen Hurts. All right. So Michael Pittman, Baker Mayfield, Curtis Samuel, Devin Singletary, Marquise Brown, Justin Fields, Henry Ruggs, Darnell Mooney, Elijah Moore, and Nyheim Hines went. And then I'm back at 11-6. I did like the people that I was looking at instead of Hurts went right after him, which was Michael Pittman and Curtis Samuel. I also had my eye on Darnell Mooney, who went in the 11th. Back on me now. And there's still a starting running back out there, and I'm not high on this guy at all. But as everyone well knows, opportunity sometimes is more important than anything else. And technically, I mean, like I said, this guy's a starter. So I am going to go ahead here and select Philip Lindsay. And that would probably be it for me for running back. That'll be my 4th running back. And I'm happy with the 4 that I have. So, all right. So after Lindsay, McCole Hardman, Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, and now Rudy, you are on the clock at 11:10.
Yeah. And now's where I think I may have to get interested in QB. I have 2 picks left the way we're doing this. I've seen a few of the guys come off the board. The one I was waiting all day, obviously, Jalen Hurts was still floating around out there. And, part of you maybe wants to put your fist through a wall, like, oh, that's my guy. And I had a plan and he left. But Pat, you started this off, I think, right after Mahomes got taken or right around then, talking about how deep the quarterback room is this year as far as drafts, and a lot of younger guys with upside. And I'm looking at 2 right now that I'm actually fighting over in my head. I may
got 2 picks left.
What's that?
You got 2 picks left.
I know. And I'm going to see if I can sneak them both back to back the way this is working out, because if I do, then I'm just going to be that guy. So I'm going to go with the higher ADP guy to get it out of the way, because you do have those folks that they are just straight computers in their head. They maybe bring the laptop to the draft and they're just crunching numbers and they're going off the best, and they have all their extra sites to help them out and stuff. I am taking who I think is going to be the best quarterback out of the draft, at least rookie of the year offensively. I'm taking Zach Wilson.
Yes, Zach Wilson. Anybody who follows either of us on Twitter knows how much disrespect we believe Zach Wilson gets, or I believe Zach Wilson gets. I'm not going to speak for you, but I think, looking at the preseason games, Wilson has been far and away the best rookie. I mean, Fields has had some pretty good moments. And I think because Zach Wilson has played a little bit more, he's gotten run with the ones because he is going to be the starter. He may look a little bit better, but you also have to understand that he's the only one really playing against number 1 defenses too. So I think Zach Wilson's going to have a great year. I really like that pick, but I heard your side. So Tony Pollard, Trey Lance, Marvin Jones, and Rashad Bateman went. That side was for Trey Lance, I'm assuming.
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm not anti-Lance. I saw where he's going to maybe miss a week with a little nick on the thumb. With San Francisco, I feel like almost like what's happening right now in Chicago is that they are just being a little stubborn. And I mean, I get that some of it is, okay, you signed a veteran in the offseason, or you made a trade for a guy to be your guy. In Chicago, you picked up Andy Dalton, who's never really done more than been a decent to solid, sometimes really good, but a quarterback. Jimmy G in San Fran, he was on that team, had great games during the season, but he wasn't awesome. His whole big problem seems to be a lot with him where he can't stay healthy, can't stay on the field. You won't put these young kids into play, but you drafted them and you want to play around and say like they're not ready. Zach Wilson, they're giving him the keys to the car right away. And you do look at some of these quarterbacks, Trevor Lawrence, he's their guy. They did not mess around and pick him number one overall, bring in the coaching staff and everything to transition him from college. Now, the guy that I'm going to take, and mainly it's because of the news today, and it's going to double down on quarterbacks for me. And I'm totally fine with it because I feel between both of them, I'll have a viable option. I can make moves. I can release guys. Now, your draft picks are your draft picks. I mean, you're not going to dump maybe your top guy, barring an injury, but I'm not scared to have two young players on my team at quarterback that both have tremendous upside. I'm in a keeper league in my mindset, so I'm not worried about it. Yeah, I have options. Deshaun Watson's still out there on our board, and again, because there's a lot of baggage there. Matt Ryan, Kirk Cousins. Good to see Jameis Winston. It was a no-brainer that he was going to win that job because Taysom Hill is just garbage. Fitzpatrick, he'll have some good games for them. Roethlisberger downswing. My boy Carson's out there, the Bronco. But I'm looking at this guy floating around, and I'm not going to mess around. I'm taking Mac Jones. I got two young rookie stud quarterbacks that I want on my team right now, and I'm not going to stay away from it because to me, he's. I think Mac Jones has the potential to be Tom Brady 2.0 if they set him up right. I mean, you saw what Brady was, a 6th-round pick. And has turned into what he is. He did that on his own as well. But again, I think Mac Jones is heavily underrated coming out of this draft. People laughed at him and said it was the skill players around him. Well, you know what? I don't think the whole Cam thing was just because they didn't want Cam. I think they want Mac Jones. So do I.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. He did enough, obviously, to beat Cam out and beat him out bad enough that they actually released him, which is a bit of a shock. But yeah, the Patriots like him. Listen, you stacked your team with, wide receivers, running backs, tight ends, and took a shot on two young quarterbacks who could both turn out to be very good. And you know what? If they're not, like you said, there are guys out there that are going to have great weeks. And there's also guys out there like Jameis Winston, for example, who you mentioned, who he could, with Sean Payton, potentially have an incredible season this year. Yeah. And he's just going to sit out there on the waiver wire. And if he has a great week one or a good week one and maybe Mac Jones or Zach Wilson falls off a little bit, you go ahead and you pick him up and you don't really worry about dropping a quarterback because, like you said, the position is so deep.
No, it's again, Winston has had some big games. He's had some very good seasons. Was it 2019? He finishes the QB4. You see that the potential that's always been out there around him. And to go to a team, and I just said it about great offenses. Now, obviously, Drew Brees is the name you associate with New Orleans, but Sean Payton, Kamara being down there now, the skill players are interesting because you're floating through people. They got tight end injury issues. They have a lot of rotation. They do have a good defense that can keep you in games to make things work for you. But yeah, he's a guy that, like you just said, he's going to float around out there like your Matt Ryans, your maybe a Stafford or somebody else who you got to look at that and just say, hey, look, whether you decide to then just go stream with your quarterback based on a matchup, you might do that week. Just pick that guy up because you have him do against the worst defense possible. And again, that's where you do want to pay attention to the news and notes and transactions and things like that and be willing to, again, move off a guy. Like I took Devontae Smith. It doesn't mean I'm going to start him every week. No, but I took him as a guy down the road. I have Antonio Brown, who I picked 2 rounds later. I'd be totally fine putting him in there. And again, with that flex position, yeah, I'm totally fine. I'm looking up and down at my team and I'm happy.
So after your Mac Jones pick, Devontae Parker, Evan Ingram, and Deshaun Watson went, this is my last pick. And I'm basically deciding between 3 guys. For me, it's Russell Gage in Atlanta, who I think Calvin Ridley steps into the Julio Jones role, obviously. And Kyle Pitts is there and he's going to be used all over the field. But I mean, think about as a defense, you have Calvin Ridley and Kyle Pitts. Nobody's going to pay attention to Russell Gage. And I think he's got a shot to really break out and have a really good year. I'm also looking at Nelson Aguilar, who showed that he could play. His last year in Philly, he was okay. And then when he went to Las Vegas last year, he was their number 1 wide receiver. So I think with Mac Jones there, I think Aguilar's value rises a little bit because I think Jones is a much more accurate quarterback and Aguilar is the 1. And then I'm looking at Rondell Moore. So it's kind of funny. So I have Aguilar, who's the 1 on his team. Russell Gage, who is the 2, and then Rondell Moore, who is the 3. And I think in situations like this, had Cam still been there, I probably would have went Russell Gage. And honestly, if we had another round in this draft, I probably would go Russell Gage and hope that Aguilar fell back to me. But because of the fact that this is my last pick, I feel like the guy with the biggest upside here is Nelson Aguilar. I think that it's possible that he, becomes a true number 1 receiver in that offense and puts up some pretty serious numbers this year. So I'm going to take Aguilar with my last pick.
Yeah, that's a great pick. And like you said, the reasons being, now you see a quarterback who has an arm. Cam seemed a little cooked, couldn't get the ball out. And again, great career, and not to hate on the guy at all, but to see Aguilar on that team had a great year in Las Vegas, with Derek Carr throwing him the football. This is that point. You just said it is, since, the draft's ending at round 12, we'd normally have a pick or 2 left. You'd obviously go for a kicker, defense, stuff like that. But this is that part in the draft where you really start to look for the diamonds in the rough. And again, the generic minds might look at it one way or the other, or somebody who's following the ADP script all the way is another thing. But, you can find some serious upside, and then still, once you get through your draft, I know me, it's almost like Christmas Eve, so to speak, still after the draft. It's like you go into the waiver wire and you're already making moves week 1. Oh, well, I'm going to move. I'm going to pick that defense up. I'm going to stream this guy. I'm going to do that. Then it turns into the real game within the game. Yeah,
I actually drafted on Saturday in a league last Saturday, and I already have a blind bid claim in for that league. So fantasy football starts for us probably June, July timeframe. We start really ramping up and paying attention, and it pretty much doesn't stop until the close of the regular season. And then by that point, I'm so into fantasy, I'm usually doing daily fantasy during the playoffs and stuff like that. So it's one of those things where once fantasy football season, my wife actually said to me the other day, and she's been great through all this, through us, starting this podcast and everything. So I want to give her a shout out. She's really been awesome. But she's like, it's almost like you don't even pay attention to anything else around you once you start getting into fantasy football. And she's right. And that's something that, obviously I need to work on and take into consideration, because this is a balance that you kind of have to fall into. But you have to stay on top of the news to kind of be doing what we're doing and putting out information. We have to be on top of it. And it's hard to get out of the fantasy mindset once you've already started, your research and stuff like that for the season.
Fantasy, football, and family, they all start with an F. Absolutely.
There's a couple other things that do too, but
yeah, they can get mentioned a lot during fantasy football season or amongst family. Obviously, this Saturday will be a big amalgamation of all that with the annual draft and holiday party like you guys always put on, which is always great. We all appreciate it. And I mean, it's definitely, one of those things where, for those of us that have been doing this for a long time, we're old now. We're married, we have families, we're jobs, real jobs, and all that stuff that, factors in. So, life, everybody's fantasy football is life, and it's a big part to be fun and enjoy it. But, that's why we're doing this, to find another outlet to put our knowledge and our excitement about this out there. And again, anybody who's 6 or 66, if you're just getting involved in fantasy, if you're been doing it for years and think we don't have a clue what we're talking about, we don't care. But for everybody else, we're here to have fun. This is something that's a big part of our lives. Just trying to do this and have fun. And hey, if it takes off, great. We're all for it. Maybe we could do this for real life and someday and make this our real jobs. And hopefully folks that are out there are listening to us and like what we have to say. And if you don't like it, that's great too. That's why we're here. We always have our different opinions on things. I'm looking forward to seeing you on Saturday and the rest of the crew and actually being involved in the entire draft for once. But definitely, we appreciate everybody that's been out there listening and supporting us throughout this venture. And after this, we'll probably be getting into our weekly tidbits and podcast as far as, drafts are done. Now we're moving on to waiver wires, top 20s, important things that you need to know for week 1, week 2, and all the way to your championship.
Yeah, I think some of the things that we do on a weekly basis, we're going to sort of, enlighten some other people on the processes that we go through. And I think that's going to be important for week to week to understand that fantasy football does not stop at your draft. it is something that you have to pay attention to. If you want to win, you have to pay attention to it all year long. So hopefully, keep us on once a week and let us sort of guide you in the direction that we're going. And we don't always make the right calls. Obviously, no one does, but we have some solid reasons for why we do what we do. And hopefully we do a good enough job explaining to you why we're doing what we're doing, and not just, hey, pick this player up and drop this player or trade for this guy. But we're going to try to bring you some logic and some reason behind those things. Before we go, I do want to just read off the teams real quick so that the listeners can kind of just get a quick overview of each of our teams. So I'll go ahead and read mine. You can read yours, and then we'll get out of here for the day. So my lineup is in order of pick: Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon, Darren Waller, Robert Woods, Tyler Lockett, T. Higgins, Tom Brady as my quarterback, Damian Harris, Will Fuller, Jalen Hurts, Phillip Lindsay, and Nelson Aguilar.
I had the 10th pick overall, so I was close to a wraparound spot, so I could game plan on my 2 picks in a row, so to speak. Devontae Adams, my first round, then Stephon Diggs, followed by Kyle Pitts in the 3rd, James Robinson in the 4th, Mike Davis in the 5th. I reached for Devontae Smith in the 6th round, Sony Michel in the 7th, Antonio Brown in the 8th, Robert Tonyan 9, Jamal Williams 10, and my quarterbacks rounded me out. I had Zach Wilson at 11, and my 12th and final pick was Mac Jones.
Awesome. So we're going to go ahead and post this to Twitter as well, and see if we can get some feedback on there. So if you don't follow us on Twitter, you can go ahead and do that if you'd like. We are at the 9 Route 1. Scott, his personal account is at Scott from Delco. That's Scott from DELCO. If you'd like to follow us on Twitter and check out our teams and give us your feedback. What do you think we did right? What do you think we did wrong? We always like to hear from people that are listening. It helps us to sort of rethink some of our thought processes and keep things fresh in our minds. So
absolutely, folks. We appreciate the feedback. It lets us know what you want to hear and what you don't want to hear, but we'll keep saying it. You keep doing it. And we look forward to a fun fantasy football season with everybody here.
Absolutely. All right. You guys have a good one. We will talk to you again next week when we bring you our first in-season episode. We'll have some waiver wire ads, some start sits, and just some general thoughts on the start of the season and, matchups and things like that. So hopefully you stick with us and keep listening to us throughout the season. Until then, we will talk to you later.
Peace. And that's going to do it for this week for the Fantasy Football Podcast from the 9 Route. On behalf of Pat, my name is Scott. Thank you for listening, folks. We'll talk to you next week.